Divisions in a DA-led coalition government of the city of Johannesburg have yet again been laid bare over the past few days. The multi-party coalition is on the rocks following Council Speaker Vasco Da Gama's ousting through a no-confidence motion in the early hours of Thursday morning. As coalition partners are busy fighting amongst themselves, residents are the biggest losers, as services are hard to come by under these circumstances. So what measures is the city of Johannesburg putting in place to ensure that service delivery is not interrupted amid all this chaos? Let's look into these issues. I'm going to be joined now by the City of Joburg's MMC for Group Corporate and Shared Services Councillor Leah Knott. Ms. Knott, good afternoon. Welcome to today here on eNCA. Thank you very much for your time. Will services be affected by these shenanigans that are going on in the chambers?
No, I think the Executive Mayor, Dr. Palatse, has confirmed that the Executive is still very much at work in terms of delivering services. We're very committed to the residents of Joburg, and we are working very hard so that this doesn't affect them.
What are you going to do to make sure that things on the service level remain the same? You have coalition partners who've turned their back on the DA and sided with opposition to vote Mr. Vasco Da Gama out.
Well, I think that's partly true. I think we've had individual members who've broken rank within their parties and voted against the Speaker. Not to say that the coalition partners have broken rank. I think you've seen in the news today and probably throughout this week with regards to certain members where disciplinary action is having taken place. I don't think that speaks to the coalition having turned on itself. So I know that the party leadership has been meeting this week to iron out any issues that have arisen, and I think that they will come through with a solution, and we're hopeful for that. We do have the residents' best interests at heart, and that's what we're here for.
At the beginning of this coalition, after the November elections last year, it was a bit rocky from what I recall, and then things seemed to settle and stable. And when you looked at Johannesburg, you looked at a very stable coalition government, unlike what we're seeing in Tshwane and what we've seen in Nelson Mandela Bay in the Eastern Cape. What do you think has gone wrong?
Well, if I have to hazard a guess, I think we need to look at the dynamics that are at play. And, coalition governments are always going to have your, disagreements and your agreements. And, you need to be able to collaborate and work through them. And there are ways to do that. I mean, we have a coalition agreement. We have dispute resolution mechanisms. And, I think those need to be utilized. And, if we're looking at the bigger picture, you're seeing, the PAC bring a motion of no confidence at the same time that Dada Moreira is coming into council with the ANC. At the same time that we're launching lifestyle audits against councillors and senior officials in the best interests of our city, because it is important. There's a very bad perception of government. And, we're doing all of these things, including the forensic investigations that weren't actioned within the last 2 years, the SIU recommendations from the PPE corruption over 2020 and 2021, and all of that's going to start coming out. And I find the timing of this a little bit opportunistic. So, I don't think it's an issue of coalition politics failing. I think it's more an issue of opportunism and people not wanting corruption to be dealt with.
Are you then accusing them of trying to sabotage your efforts to clean up the city's governance structures?
No, absolutely. I don't think it's a question. I mean, the motion against Vasco Da Gama as the Speaker was because he couldn't control council. But in essence, the control issue resided in the opposition benches. We've seen time and time again, we've had to sit there until the early hours of the morning because we've been delayed by singing and dancing and completely frivolous points of order that have nothing to do with service delivery. And I really think we need to see the bigger picture. We're not here to play games, and certainly not with residents' money or with reports that need to go through that are extremely important to...
Yeah. How much of your time and Dr. Mpho Palatse's time and the rest of the council is spent on dealing with the internal squabbles and these challenges you've just said, and therefore will take your eye off service delivery?
Well, I think, we do deal a lot with the internal mechanisms, I suppose, within the coalition, but that's really engagements and discussions that happen, and they need to happen. It's a 9-party coalition. You need to have rigorous engagements behind the scenes. What is very taxing is the unnecessary delays in council that are caused by the opposition. I think Vasco, in his role as Speaker, has been more than nice in giving them opportunity to speak and to air their views.
But my question, Leah, is how much of your time, as somebody who's in charge for group corporate and shared services, or the mayor's time, spent to do exactly what you're talking about instead of servicing the residents of Johannesburg?
Well, look, fortunately, we don't have council every day because it probably would be a lot more time. But we've had council sittings where we haven't been able to start for 4 or 5 hours. This week, I was going through to attend the Oversight Committee meeting for Group Corporate and Shared Services, and the ANC and the EFF didn't show up, which meant that it collapsed the Section 79 meeting, which is now resulting in irregular expenditure. And from what I understand, they haven't bothered showing up to any of the other Oversight Committee meetings. So my question to them is, do you have the interest of service delivery at heart? Or are you merely playing a game so that you can get back into power and have access to the money? And I think they've been quite front and center about that. Even in their press conferences, they've said we've lost access to 300 billion rand in Gauteng. We need to get the access back.
So if that kind of example you've used, you had a meeting that collapsed, now you're going to be doing irregular expenditure, how does that impact then on good governance?
Well, it impacts excessively. I mean, these strat plans that are happening with the oversight committees are intended to look at the business plans of all the entities and departments, look at all their KPIs, their targets, and to strategize how their oversight runs and how they'll hold the executive to account in order to ensure that services are delivered and that we don't incur irregular expenditure, we don't incur audit findings, and etc. It's a very important process. So I think that the fact that they've treated it as if it's just, it's not important, shows you exactly where their motive lies.
Okay, finally, let me ask you a question where we began. Can you assure the residents of Johannesburg that the important services that they need will be delivered while you are still battling to make sure that the coalition works well?
No, absolutely. I mean, just this week alone, after the council meeting, I've sat in shortlistings for Section 56 managers. I know the executive mayor has been on activities with MMC Michael Son in terms of, environments and infrastructure. The MMC of Development Planning has been working with dealing with the planning application issues. She's opened up extended hours for residents in order to deal with the backlog on plans. Other MMCs are also dealing with informal trade from economic development. All of these things are still going on. Today, we were looking into the issues that we have with dealing with persons with disability in the city and how we make buildings and facilities more accessible. So we are still working.
Is that why you're wearing that T-shirt? Is that why you're wearing that T-shirt with persons with disabilities?
Absolutely. Funny story is the city only sits at, I think, below 1%. We should be at about 7% in terms of support of persons with disabilities. And that's not just your physical disabilities. It extends to a wide range of things such as sensory and mental and, all sorts of other disabilities that people may have. And we don't cater to them enough in our city as well as within the actual administration.
Are you going to change that? Are you going to change that? Is your council going to change that?
Yes, that's the intent. I think, we talk and we have meetings and really today we were sitting down and saying, we actually need to action these things. And
you must stop talking. You must stop talking and do. I think it's important to do. Thank you very much, Leah. Thanks for your time on today here on eNCA. Leah Knott, City of Joburg's MMC for Corporate and Shared Services.